Hello and welcome to I Am with Eric Faria. It is my pleasure today to have here with me Emanuela Palmares, who is an editor for Tribuna Newspaper and also the Vice President of New American Dream Foundation. I got that.
You got it right.
How are you?
I'm great.
Yes, thank you.
It's good to finally be here.
Thank you for being here.
My
I know we
pleasure.
tried a few
We
times,
did.
but it worked. So I just wanted to start by asking you, what is it that you believe in your life has made you come so far from where you started to where you are now? Because you have an amazing story. So if you could share a little bit of your story and then talk about...
You think so?
I do, yeah.
As I've gotten older,
Mhm.
I realized that my story begins with my mom's story. And for me, she's my inspiration every day. She's someone who never met her parents, who was born in a foster care system in Brazil,
Oh, wow.
who was raised by a family that was really hard on her. She started working at the Sweet Age of 5, tending to animals and doing things like that. And whenever I struggle with things, I always think of her because she was just so much at a time where she had so little to give. And she is an amazing mother. And she decided to find that in herself and give something to the world that the world hadn't given her. And I think that was a really powerful thing as I became an adult and realized that how empowering that is.
Yeah.
And how sometimes we make excuses for ourselves for not being who we want to be because of, my mom and dad weren't home, or this happened to me, or, all these life scars that we acquire become our crutches. And she refused to give her crutches any oxygen, and she just kept on moving with her life. So I definitely think I've come that far because I've woken up with a private Yoda in my house, or slash Mr. Miyagi, as I call her.
From the Karate Kid.
Yeah, every day. So I didn't feel like I had a choice.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, and it's love.
Oh.
It's just wanting to be an expression of love and being open to receive that love in my life, and loving what I do, and loving where I live, and loving where I want to go, and loving where I've been. And loving where I've been has been the toughest lesson.
Really? How so?
To really love all the bad things that have happened. And understand that the good things wouldn't be as good without that contrast, without that learning experience, without that push. And I'm finally at a place where I do love it all. I loved all the bad experiences. I love all the growth that happened. I arrived in this country when I was 10 years old, and I didn't speak a word of English. We rented an apartment near Main Street, downtown Danbury. We slept on mattresses for the first 3 months. We didn't have a car for a long time. I remember doing groceries with my mom, pushing a shopping cart from the south end of Main Street to the mid end of Main Street near the post office. You know where that is now?
Yeah, I know what that is. Yeah.
And my mom telling us, hey, now you got to push that cart back with your sister because we didn't come to this country to steal anything.
Wow.
And pushing that cart back. And I was in middle school, and people that I went to school with, seeing me and my sister pushing an empty cart back to the supermarket in the busiest street in town. And really being hurt by that as a preteen, and then reveling in that experience later on in my life, and going would anything that I've done today taste this sweet if I hadn't pushed that cart?
That's amazing.
And really kind of reveling in that and just being really grateful for that day.
For that day, yeah.
Yeah, so things like that, I think it's what motivates me. And I think that, having a child with special needs has taught me so much about love.
Yeah.
And, beyond the whole cliche of, you have to be a very special person to have a child with special needs. It's not that. But you do learn about love a lot. I don't think I'm that special. I definitely think my son is special, though. I think he's like God's gift to earth, and I think he's like amazing. you've seen some of his videos. Like
Yes,
he's just
in
joy.
pictures.
Like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
is just, he's great. But it's just that he's taught me to just love and not ask questions.
Right.
And just really understand that I have to meet people where they are.
And be present, right?
Yeah.
Because
and
they're so present, they're so in the moment, right?
really, and Caillou is like, he knows when I'm with him. And he appreciates that, and he lets me know. And he is just, he was nonverbal for the first almost 3 years of his life.
Wow.
And we've done a lot of work with him. And what's worked for us is not going to work for every family with autism, but we've done a lot of therapy, and we have not done any medicine, but we've done a lot of therapy, a lot of applied behavioral therapy, which is very time intensive. Right now, he has about 35 hours of services that he receives a week.
Wow, every week.
Yeah, so my day ends at 3, and then I'm with him. And he has someone with him all day, a therapist that intervenes. And so it's just been a lot of meeting him where he's at different phases in his life, and learning with that every time I did that, every time I let go of my dreams for him, and I open up to see what he wanted and where he wanted to go, I learned more, and it revealed another side of him. And every time I let go of all the things that society told me that my son needed to be doing, and that amazing baby center app that keeps buzzing every morning and saying your child should count by to 100 by noon today, and you're like,
all the comparison,
like he's not, And once I let go of all that, and I just accepted our diagnosis, and really kind of threw myself into how can I communicate with him, how do I peel back the layers, how do I find out who is this person that God has
who
given
he really
me.
Is,
And once I gave my all to that process, I met my favorite human, and, in the whole universe, that brings so much joy in my life, and is so full of wisdom. He wakes up every morning, he goes, Mama, wake up. It's a new day. But like with joy, like true joy in his life, or he randomly looks at me and goes, I love you. But
so
he's
awesome.
like he like slouches, like I love you, like he loves me so hard, and that as a human being,
so pure, right? So genuine.
It is, and it's really, if you have the eyes to see, you're having a spiritual encounter in that moment, because a love that pure is so rare nowadays, right? No strings attached, nothing. I can only compare it. And it may sound weird, like, if you have a pet that you really love and they're just so happy to see you, and it's not comparing a human life to an animal life, but a life is a life, and they want nothing from you.
It's unconditional.
They don't have a hidden agenda. They don't have this kind of whole, soap opera thing going back in the background. I'm going to play hard to get today because she's going to give me more food. There's nothing like that. It's just love.
It's just love.
And depending on you blindly. For their
and
livelihood.
You.
And I can only compare that to the spiritual experience that I have with my relationship with God. That I have to trust God the way my son trusts me. With my stuff in life. And that's how he has taught me. So, it's love. It's love for my family, and it's the love for my community, and the love for my child, love for my husband, who's wonderful. That really motivates me, and I think that's what has kept me going in this so-called amazing story that you said.
I mean, because it's a story of so many people, right? Because so many people came to this country looking for a better life, myself included, my mother also. So it's an immigrant story, but then it's also the story of the United States of America.
It is. It's who we are, right? It's our fabric. And that's why we started the New American Dream Foundation, because, after having the newspaper for 15 years, we asked ourselves, how do we identify other Celias and other Emanuelas? And that's how that started.
Awesome. So this is the perfect moment to stop. We're going to have a little break here, but we're going to continue, okay?
Sure.
So for everybody watching, stick with us. We'll be back right after this break. And we are back with I Am. Once again, I have here with me Emanuela Palmares. So let's just dive right in. So you were talking about the foundation. So tell us a little bit more about the work that you guys do.
So, the Tribuna Newspaper is the trilingual publication that my mom founded it close to 20 years ago now, which is insane when I think about it. We have the joy of having you as one of our contributors with your column, which we love.
Thank you.
And it's called Well-Being. And you talk about all things about the well-being of people, and people really enjoy that.
Yeah. It's amazing to write. Like, it's because every month I have to come up with something, and I'm like, okay, what is actually more, personal to people that they can actually apply to their lives?
And I think that with the immigrant community, there is a bigger thirst for elevating life beyond just going to work, right? Because a lot of the first years of your grind, that's what it's all about. And then after that starts to kind of like slow down a little bit, you start to ask other questions, and you realize that there's some areas of your life that you've neglected big time. And, so we enjoy having you there, because we feel with the Tribuna, our job is to, how do we help elevate all of our community in all areas of life, right? We want to be a publication that really enriches people's quality of life. So we talk about issues more in depth. We talk about general issues that pertain to the state, and then we talk about issues of personal growth, and that's where you come in.
Right.
And when it comes to our foundation, once we reached a time that we turned 15, we had a big gala, or quinceanera, as I call it, for the Tribuna. We wanted to create an event that would help us identify other Celias, my mom, and other Emanuelas, and other Liz's, other Angelas, our team at the Tribuna, other immigrants who were on their way to do something that was bigger than themselves.
Right.
People that were working in the community. And we created the American Dream Awards, and we created this essay process where people would send us an essay. We have a selection committee. They would try to, find people that had a good essay saying, this is my American dream, this is what I've overcome, and this is what I want to do with it. Right. And then we wanted to give them a $2,000 scholarship or $2,000 check. So it started with a Person of the Year category, which ends up being adult, either a single mom or single dad, or someone who's done a lot of work in the community. And then 3 Students of the Year. We give each one of them $2,000. The Person of the Year is a check to the person. So if they want to take a vacation, if they want to pay, a month's rent or mortgage, if they want to shave off a little bit of a credit card debt, that's their personal choice. Yeah. The students, we cut a check to the educational institution of their choice.
Okay, awesome.
So it goes directly to school. And then we also have a category called Veteran of the Year. And then we try to identify a veteran who joined the military before becoming a citizen.
Before becoming a citizen.
Yeah, and really try to show the community that underneath this whole conversation about immigration, what really lies are people who deeply love this country.
Yeah, and who deeply are grateful for the opportunities.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of the conversation around it has focused on the wrong aspect of immigration, right?
I totally agree.
Like, we are worried about the airplane and not the destination, right? Like, so the airplane is, okay, how did they get here? But the destination is, the final destination is becoming an American and really wanting to be a part of this country. Yeah. And so the whole gala is decorated in red, white, and blue.
Nice.
We really make it as an ode to this country, and we celebrate immigrants and their stories. And then we do a Lifetime Achievement Award winner. And that's how we tie it all together, by focusing on someone who is the epitome of the American dream, who's over 65. It usually ends up someone who has a very big history of philanthropy in the community, but came as an immigrant. Right. One of our most dear ones was Mr. Anthony Rizzo, who is known for his generosity around town. And he came with his sister at 11 years old in a ship, 5,000 miles across the sea from Italy during the Second World War. His mom had just lost her husband, his father, and put the oldest kids in the ship and sent them over to live with their uncle in Danbury, Connecticut, of all places in the world. Yeah. And he started his electrical company with a few $100s and bought a truck. Today he's a state contractor, and he's literally financed a lot of the things that we've seen at Danbury Hospital happen. The Rizzo Garage, it's one of them. It's literally all done by philanthropy. Yeah. So we have him come and speak, and we have a little documentary made of him, a short. And then the kids get to see that first. And then we bring them up to the stage, and then they get their award. So we really want to show people and say, is there really a difference? Don't we lose by not making these kids think that tomorrow they could be a Rizzo, you know.
Yeah.
Do you understand that in this group of immigrants here, some are DACA students, some are children of undocumented parents, some are undocumented themselves, some are documented.
Yeah.
But in that mix, there could be the next Rizzo of our community.
Of course.
You know,
yeah,
I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
You know, so we try to celebrate that night. And with the Veteran of the Year, we showed that here is a group of people who are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for a country they can't even vote.
I know.
You know, and they're
so
there
powerful.
fighting for all of our freedoms. They're there fighting for everything every American believes in, and they can't be fully part of society. So we do that with the New American Dream Foundation. So it's our foundation that we put together to give out these scholarships. We have 3 pillars. We want to engage people civically. We want to work on their health. We want to work on their education, because we feel these are the 3 things that made our family success possible. Being healthy, being engaged in our community, and seeking educational opportunities. So we do that through the gala, and then all the ticket sales from the gala, we pull that money and we create a day of free health care in Danbury with Danbury Hospital at the Midtown campus at Wascon. And last year we serviced 400 people.
Wow.
And they're able to get free flu shots, no questions asked. It's for the income challenged, uninsured, and underinsured. So people that sometimes have, you know, a job, but the co-pays or the deductible is just such a scary thing. Yeah. So we had a field hospital set up with a partnership with Danbury Hospital. 400 consults were given, and that's what we do with the money. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I didn't know about the last part. Yeah, no, that's really cool.
It's a lot of work, and but it's one of the most meaningful things we've been able to do, and everything the Tribuna is becomes tangible that evening.
Yeah, through the gala.
Yeah, so it's a really cool event. Yeah.
Amazing.
You should come this year.
I will be there.
Sure,
yes,
yeah.
I will be there, yes. So why do you think that it's so important for people to feel like they're part of a community?
Because if you don't, you don't care.
That's true, yeah.
And if you don't care, you're disconnected. And if you're disconnected, you're going to behave in a way that people are going to assume that you're bad. And I think that's really the crux of the problem when it comes to some communities having issues with new immigrant communities coming in.
Yeah.
I think new immigrant communities are very protective of themselves because they're very scared.
Yeah, they feel very vulnerable.
They do. And then that creates sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy sometimes.
Right.
Because they don't want to get involved with the larger community, you know. So then they seclude themselves within. But then there are people already within that circle that like to prey on them because they're already of that community.
Right.
So they also want to make sure that they keep inside the circle.
Exactly.
They don't branch out because then they have more control over them. So they're fighting so many different things at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that they get a really bad rap for not knowing what they should know. Yeah. But how do you fault someone for that? You know, how do you begin to even,
I don't see how you can even...
So the only way to break through that is to focus on human beings. And just really focus on very, very basic principles of love and compassion and humanity, and strip away all of the other stuff and look at people for just being people. And then you realize that the more people that are engaged in community, that are together, that feel like they have ownership of the place they live, the better off we're all going to be. So everything that pushes them off to a corner into the shadows, we all pay the price later. Yeah. It may make you more comfortable because you don't physically see them. Right. But that doesn't mean you're not building a cancer, because the more you push people off, the more disenfranchised they are, the more disconnected from you. And a lot of people, when they dehumanize other humans, they think that it's just one way. Yeah. But it's a two-way process. If you dehumanize me, I'm going to dehumanize you too. For sure. And then that's where the breakdown of our society starts to happen. And that's really where we're living today. If people are unable to relate as people, they only relate on a basis of opinion. And then you're not a person, you're just an opinion. And if you're just an opinion, I can take you down, I can prove you wrong, I can change you up. And then you lose the humanity in that argument. Wow, I mean, that is so powerful. I actually need a moment. Sorry. No, it was perfect. It was so good. Yeah, no, but I definitely want to come back to that point. So hold that thought. And
for everybody watching, please stick with us because, you know, it's the last segment coming up. So I'll see you then. And welcome back once again. This is I Am, and I am here today with Emanuela. I'm just going to jump in because we have so much to cover before we go. So I love what you were talking about in terms of how we dehumanize other people, especially immigrants. It seems like, you know, if you are a new immigrant, it is so easy for you to be just stripped away of your humanity, right? For whatever reason, because you kind of become, like you said, a self-fulfilling prophecy. So having a community, being part of a community is really important. How do you think that people that have just gotten here, that want to be a part of a community, how do you think they can actually start becoming more ingrained in the towns where they are, in the conversations that, you know, they should be a part of because they are here?
Sure.
How do you think we go about doing that?
I had the chance to speak last week at a citizenship ceremony in Danbury. It was
nice.
our first at the library.
Cool.
And I was one of their speakers for the class of new Americans. And I think whenever I'm asked that question, I say what worked for me. Volunteer.
Volunteer.
Be of service.
For sure, right? Go to libraries.
You don't have to
schools.
speak English to work at your soup kitchen.
So true, yeah.
You don't have to speak English for you to ask if there's a clean city project and you can sweep up the street. You don't have to speak English if you want to give a couple of hours at the library and put some books away.
Yeah.
My mom taught when I was 15. It was a very difficult time in my life because once I was a teenager, it's never easy, and then I was also kind of figuring out just then that we weren't documented. I hadn't really felt it until that point.
Until that point, yeah.
And my mom said, "Here's the deal. Be of service and be so useful that your status is not going to matter."
Right. That they actually want you here.
That who's not going to want you here?
Exactly.
she goes, you're so worried about your situation. What are you doing for the community?
Right.
What are you doing about other people? Trust that God will take care of you if you take care of his people.
Right.
And
That's
she
so
goes,
good, yeah.
live a life of service. And if you service other people and if you're there for the community, if something were to happen, I'm like, don't know. Like, this person needs to stay here. This person is
exactly.
Like,
She's a valuable member of our community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think what happens is if we let go of the labels and we started defining our own worth and understanding that you never have nothing to give. You always have something to give. Whether you're documented, undocumented, whether you were born here your whole life and you don't have money, whether you have a lot of money but you're unhappy, no matter what happens, someone is always lacking something.
Exactly.
Temporarily, right? We know that. You're always, at one point I'm okay temporarily because at another point I'm not going to be okay and I'm going to need somebody else to help me. So that's what you told me. So what I would say to someone is be of service, volunteer, because you meet other people and you start to humanize the place you live and the community you live will start to humanize you because you're like, look at them, they're here and they want to serve. And some people may argue and say, there's the standard of being the perfect American for immigrants. And almost that's like not fair. And, you can't make a mistake and you can't do this and you can't do that. And I understand the argument. My other argument is, you know what, if you want to trade places and grow up in Brazil for 10 years, be my guest. I think that there's something to be said about the fact that we're able to come to another country and attain things that, if we were to be honest, we know would not be possible in the places that we were naturally born. And there's a level of gratefulness that needs to be expressed, and I think that volunteerism, it's a great way to express that.
I love that answer. I really like it because I feel like that's a way for you to just hit the ground running and to actually feel like, okay, so this is the town where I live. These are the people that live in this town.
And you
These
break
are the
through the language barrier. You break through the cultural barrier because you're there and you're of service. And the downside to that kind of segues into some of the things we were talking about is that I've been a volunteer since I was 15 years old. So I've lived a life of just saying, yes, I'll join a board. Yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that other thing. And I'll juggle all these. And at one point, I think I was like in 6 boards. by the time I
Wow.
was like 24.
Because
like,
of all the yeses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was just like, the community just knew that I was able and I was willing, and and I couldn't say no.
Yeah, because they just kept asking, right? Emanuela, can you do this?
Yeah,
Yes.
so at 35, sometimes it feels like it's been a lot longer that I've been around
Right.
because I've done a lot. I'm glad I have, but I'm in a new phase now where I'm redefining what matters to me and
Yeah.
understanding that
Yeah, talk about that, and being able to say,
no, yeah, and it's and then I'm like, I don't want to be an old person, but you kind of do at sometimes, and I think it comes from struggling with having a macro impact and a micro impact, and understanding that sometimes the micro, it's more profound, and that I can do a ton of community stuff, but if I'm not spending time with my child
right,
and nurturing him,
right,
he could become someone that's going to either create a lot of good in the world or a lot of bad in the world.
right.
He can touch thousands of lives, or he can destroy thousands of lives, or
True.
hundreds or dozens, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've decided to focus on the micro and understand that community work, it's great, but my immediate community, my
Yeah.
family, my husband,
Right.
my child at this time, are
And
people
yourself, right?
in myself,
Yeah.
in that context, because they're my happiness. So for me, it's like, taking care of them is taking care of me, because that does me well, and they take care of me in return, and we create that cycle of love in our home.
Right.
Like I said, my son, he's in the spectrum, but there's sometimes I have a bad day and he just looks at me and says, Mama, you're so beautiful. And I'm like,
Yeah, what am I
this
complaining
kid
about?
is my mental health day, he creates the stress and then he distresses me. He's like the full package,
Right.
or my husband would just like send me a note in the middle of the day,
Right.
and it was just one of those days, and he had no idea because I didn't have even time to talk to him and vent that it was one of those days. So I believe that if you put out love in the world, like the world's going to take care of you that way. And this year has been a year where I've decided to focus on my micro impact and leave the macro for a later time, and just really make sure that I take care of my tribe.
So good. Yeah. No, that's it. That's amazing. So before we finish, I always end the show with a few questions that I ask my guests. It's just, basic like rapid fire. So I say one word and you say whatever comes to mind.
Let's do this.
Sounds good?
I'm ready, Eric. Hit me with your best shot. Let's
yeah.
go.
So let's start with the one that you just mentioned. Love. What is love?
Caillou.
Oh,
My son.
nice.
Yes.
Yeah. What is work?
Community.
Community. What would you say that community is for you?
My church.
Okay, awesome. And complete the sentence. I am.
Happy.
Oh, nice. Nice. And how do you define happiness?
With just being content that day and understanding that it's a process, you
Right.
know. It's not a place, it's not a thing. It's a process, and being aware of that process and allowing it for it to flow. So I'm happy.
Wow, that's so good. So one last thing, would you like to leave the audience with something that they can seek out? It can be a movie, an album, a book, whatever you wish people would seek out. And
I think I'm gonna take that as a two thing.
Okay.
Check out the New American Dream Foundation on
Okay,
Facebook
cool.
or our website, TribunaAmericanDreamAwards.com, and look up the Course in Miracles.
awesome.
I always sprinkle that wherever I go, and it's a very beautiful journey into understanding love and yourself, and I credit it to my happy, chill vibes.
Okay, awesome. Manuel, it was a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for being here.
I've always wanted. I feel like I've made it. Like I was able to make it to one of your shows. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that people are going to love this interview. And thank you so much once again.
Thank
So,
you, and
okay.
good luck.
Thank you. So for everybody watching, if you like this show, we're going to have more next week. So thank you so much for being with us, and I'll see you then.